Hello, happy, healthy humans. Welcome to today's video, which is going to be a discussion about education. Now, while you're watching, if anything I say resonates with you, go ahead and give me a thumbs up to let me know. And if you're interested in similar threads of conversation around really radically getting to the root of these fixed truths in our society, then I definitely recommend that you check out my channel and subscribe. It's quite windy here on this mountaintop, so I hope that you'll be able to hear me and see me okay as the sun is setting behind me. This discussion about education, it felt so timely right now, especially as the school year is approaching. For those of you who are students or teachers or live and know students and teachers, this is that time of the year when everyone is coming back again to start a new cycle of that academic year. And as someone who was a student for many, many years and then transitioned to being an educator now in the past few years, I think of this time, it's sort of a bittersweet time for me, and it comes from my feelings about education in general and the current education system. So let's dive right in. I'm an educator. I'm a teacher. So if you're a teacher watching this, I feel you, I hear you, and I see you. To all of us teachers, it is our job to think beyond merely that role, right? That the education system today has sort of been corrupted to become really a power-hungry system. And the truth is that the education system of today is very oppressive to youth and to teachers in general. We teachers, I have found myself at least becoming sort of a vehicle for that oppression, which is something I've had to really critically investigate myself about, and what's led me to this new place where I believe I am a radical educator. So that means that yes, I'm an educator within this education system that is inherently corrupt. I am in there in a radical place. I am teaching from a radical model. This goes beyond things like curriculum. Curriculum can be so stifling and suffocating to the student and the teacher. So let's get to why. All right, here's the real truth of the truth. Learning is our natural state. Like, as we are as people, learning is our natural state. A human being is born curious. We're born open and curious and full of wonder. And we're then conditioned through this society that kind of tells us sometimes not to be curious, sometimes not to wonder, and sometimes not to be open. And this narrowing of that human nature is something that obviously benefits the powerful, right? Like, there's a reason they do that, because it's easier to control us when we don't think for ourselves, when we don't ask difficult questions. So, as a teacher, I think of it as my job not to mold my students' learning, right? Like, molding would be kind of like trying to shape their brains, which a teacher can do. A teacher can influence how their student is going to live the rest of their life, based on their own inner compass. But I don't think that's my job as a teacher. I think my job as a teacher is not to shape the child's brain, but to give it space and room to grow. Like, really truly allow that child to go in any direction that they feel called. And so this is where it comes back to that curriculum piece that I have a hard time with. Curriculum is so enforced, right? It's like, here's what the child's going to do. And it's like, well, what if the child loves dragons? Like, can there be room for dragons in this school? Like, can we explore that with the child? So there's a lot of, I'll give, the education system credit. There's a lot of alternative modalities of teaching, a lot of new philosophies and curricula that were developed, in this past century, in the 20th century, by Europeans and Americans. And these are, yes, in many ways, they are less imperial than the current education system. And in some ways, of course, they're still lacking and they're still imperial in nature because they come from an imperial context. But a lot of these do try to imagine education beyond simply, the teacher tells the student how it is. Some of these are Montessori, developed by Maria Montessori, and Waldorf, developed by Rudolf Steiner. I have the most personal experience with Waldorf. I attended a Waldorf school for 10 years, and I definitely credit it with how I am the way I am, why I think and live the way that I do. It's absolutely because of my Waldorf upbringing. And I've known a little bit about Montessori, but definitely not as much. I'll speak on Waldorf because I think Waldorf is spot on in certain ways. Let me know if you have any experience with Waldorf schools and what your takeaway is. Especially in the younger grades with Waldorf, it's really magical. And the two guiding philosophies are warmth and rhythm. And allowing those two to play together is childhood. So allowing for warmth that like literally physically the child is warm, it's in a warm environment. Emotionally the child feels safe to express themselves. The teacher often will have a very almost like matriarchal or patriarchal energy about the teacher, sort of calling in the tribe, and it feels really like a warm setting. I think that's so important for children that they are fully loved and welcomed into their learning environment. And rhythm. Rhythm, it's the dance of life. It's that song that we're always singing, and allowing there to be space for music and dance and art and a tempo to life, to the cyclical nature of each day, of each week, of each month, and each season. Even today, I'm making this video, and it is August 27th, 2022, and this is the time of the new moon. In Judaism, a culture that I was raised in Hebrew, we call this time Rosh Chodesh. Rosh is the head, Chodesh is the month, and so it's the head of the month right now. And I love that idea, the head of the month. It's like literally the goddess life is birthing the month from her, and the head emerges first, right? So it's such a beautiful, to me, analogy of this time of returning to that place of emptiness so that we can expand that place of fullness. And I bring in the new moon just to emphasize the importance of rhythm in life, and that there's this ongoing biological clock that is ticking that we're all a part of. And we can try to deny it by creating our own schedule. I work 9 to 5, I do this time of year, and we are trying to control time, which is cyclical in nature. Time is rhythmic, time is circular. And this imperial notion that we live on a timeline is preposterous. And anyone who spends time with the trees, with this beautiful, beautiful earth, she will show you how very cyclical and circular time really is. And so, returning in this way to a more nature-oriented perspective, to a more indigenous perspective, this allows for learning to become organic. I've been reading Akilah Richards' book, Raising Free People, and it is so inspiring to hear about her journey of realizing that the real work is the unlearning. Especially when we get to a certain age and we've been so programmed, the real work is unlearning what we think we know, what we think is true about how life works and how our body works. It's an unlearning. Akilah Richards was so humbled by her children. She took them out of school and started unschooling them. And she just watched how they started to naturally learn. Like that was their soul's calling already. She didn't have to force them to learn. She only had to force them if it was a really specific subject, that they just at that moment had no interest in. It's this spaciousness that I think is missing from education. More time for the student themselves to develop their own agency. From the moment they're 2, if they start in preschool, we're telling them, this is when you use the bathroom. This is when you're creative. This is when you focus. This is when you eat. This is when you're social. And it's like your whole life is so structured. And just coming out of the education system myself, I feel that. I feel how ridiculously structured my entire life was, to the point where when I got to be an adult, right, out of the education system, I had never had so much freedom with my time, because it's a mode of control, and it takes away our time. My work as a radical educator is to find space. Where is there space? Even if I'm in a public school classroom with a state mandated curriculum, how can I find space to ask the child a question, to listen to what they're sharing, and to be with them, and just create a little bit of space? And absolute magic happens in that space, because, like I said, a student's natural state is learning. They simply need to feel safe enough to do so, and I remove intimidation and any sort of pressure from the learning environments that I create, because the truth is that failing is a part of learning, and we have to create a supportive infrastructure in the classroom, because there's going to be failure, and we have to be able to collectively lift up that person and keep them going. I'm a radical educator, and I want the best for my students, and I also want the best for myself. Like, I want to feel the environment is safe for me to learn and grow with the students. My biggest takeaway from teaching is that I don't know everything. It's not that I know it and I'm trying to tell the students how it is. They know. They are infinitely wise. I am humbled by my students every day. And when I allow myself to just open up to their wisdom, and I allow myself to create space in the classroom for them to explore and to express themselves, and it looks a lot of different ways. It can be small, it can be large. But this is the work of the radical educator, to make the student feel safe and heard, and agitate them, and take them into uncomfortable spaces as well. I think that's part of the work. I teach conflict as well, and I know how important that is. So, it's not safe necessarily in the sense of never being uncomfortable, but safe in the sense that they're secure in their beliefs, and they want to challenge them, and they want to expose them and investigate and dissect them. These are my beliefs, and why do I believe them? And there's the unlearning piece too, is like being deeply critical of our society and deeply, deeply conscious of the ways we are programmed night and day by this society, and creating that self-awareness. That's the ultimate work as a radical educator, right? So that our students can go on and be the revolution, and be the ones who question, and be the ones who are daring in their integrity. That's the work of the radical educator, and that's what I do. And maybe if you're watching, this is what you do, or this is what you want to do, and just know that there is no amount of space too small to start with. So just start where you can, when you can. If it's a mindful breath after recess with the kids, it's a moment, and giving them their time back gives them their power back. And being present yourself allows them full presence, full body, and full life. By embodying fullness myself, I create that for my students. One of the most beautiful quotes I remember when I was learning about education, I took some courses about child development. There was this great line: "The children do not do what you say. The children do as you do." So embodying that level of centeredness, that's the work. Embodying your true, full soul, that's the work of the radical educator, because it gives your students permission to do so themselves. Thank you for watching. Like this video if you resonate, and leave me a comment if you yourself have a thought, something to share about radical education. May we begin learning how to unlearn. May we begin creating space so that we can go inside of ourselves. And that's where the power is. I encourage all educators and students to go forth and learn. The world is our curriculum. This life teaches us lessons every day. I want to get out of that dichotomy of I'm a student, I'm a teacher, or I'm not, and then I can't learn, right? Like, human beings learn. That is our natural state. Human beings learn. Happy learning. Thanks for watching.